Hey, this is Hammett, and this is the Millennial Rockstar Podcast.
Hi, my name's Katy Rose Postel.
And I'm Nia Tate, and we're with Communiqué USA.
We just got to talk on the Millennial Rockstar Podcast. Hope you can check it out.
Hey there, this is Hammett. I'm known as the Millennial Translator because I help companies attract, retain, and engage top millennial talent. And speaking of top millennial talent, today on the Millennial Rockstar Podcast, we have not one, but two rock stars. Can you see that? Two rock stars. Look at them. They're rock stars. So I will be very, very honest with you. To be on this show, you got to be nominated by a boss, or a current or former boss, or maybe even a coworker. So I know the CEO of Communiqué USA very well, Shawnee Godwin. She is a fantastic woman. And I was with Shawnee and her right hand, Stephanie, one day, and I was like, hey, I need some millennial rock stars, and I want to interview them. And immediately, they came up with these two ladies right here. So today we have Nia Tate and Katy Rose Postel. Hi, ladies.
Hey.
Hi, Amanda.
Well, I am super excited to get to know you guys today, and I know that the audience is as well. So, Nia, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name is Nia Tate. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and I still live here. I love it, absolutely love it, but we have enough people, so.
Traffic is bad enough.
Yeah. I went to Georgia State University, studied marketing, got my degree in marketing, and now work in marketing. So it's really fun just to learn all about the field, and especially at Communiqué. And
Yay! And what about you, Katy Rose? Tell us about you.
Oh, my journey has been a little more convoluted. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, went to school in Virginia, and got my degree in English, and have since lived in Georgia as well as Texas and took some time traveling, but did not know I would end up in marketing, but I've ended up loving it, especially working with Communiqué.
That is awesome.
Married and have a 5-month-old baby girl.
Oh, so cute. Very cute. Very cute. And all right. So I'm going to switch it up. And since this is a different interview format, because usually, it's just one person. So I'm going to ask you guys to tell us a little bit about your career path. So Katy Rose, let's actually start with you. Tell us a little bit about how you went from being an English major in Virginia to working in marketing now.
Yes, I ended up with an English degree because it was what I enjoyed most, and I was in the middle of my junior year and said I should probably declare what I'm going to do.
That might
and exactly, and I love reading and love studying it, so I ended up getting that degree. When I moved to Georgia without a job, actually, because my boyfriend, now husband, was living here, and reached out to a couple different contacts and just said, hey, these are my credentials, I'm looking for a role, and a friend from childhood actually connected me with Stephanie at Communiqué, and the rest has been 3.5 years of really enjoying just seeing the company grow and learning a lot myself. I never thought I would be in marketing, but I feel like I've grown so much and learned a lot of new things through intentional training as well as through just, oh my goodness, this is a project right now, what can I learn on the fly? And so it's been really exciting thus far.
That's really, 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 really cool. All right. So Nia, you're up. Tell us about you from Georgia State, born and raised Atlanta girl to being where you are now.
Yeah. So originally when I started college, I was actually a nursing major. I wanted to be a
little different.
Extremely different. Two opposite ends. But then when I found out nursing wasn't for me, I went into business. And I really fell in love with the marketing classes that I sat in on, so I decided to make marketing my new major. And then at the time, I was working at just a fast food chain, just learning about just the culture and everything of that nature. So when I graduated from college is when I really kick-started my marketing career at a law firm. So it's really cool to just learn about it there. And I ultimately got connected with Stephanie and then connected with Shawnee, and now I'm here at Communiqué, which is amazing.
And how long have you been at Communiqué?
A little bit over a year.
Okay.
So about, yeah.
Okay, very cool. And then Katy Rose, you said you had been there, 3
Yeah, just over 3 years.
3 years. Okay. All right. So very good. Awesome. 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 All right. So I know. So wait, Nia, be very specific. How long have you been out of college?
For 3 years this May.
3 years this May. Katy Rose, same time? 5 years. 5 years. Okay. So you guys are still pretty early into your careers. I mean, compared to myself, who's an older millennial who is a little more established in her career. Let's just say that. You still have probably been through a couple of bumps and bruises along the road, right? All right. Well, why don't you share this with us? Tell us who wants to go first.
I will. I actually.
Thanks for being brave, Katy Rose.
Well, I'm going to be candid too, because
please.
in college, I did not have an internship. It wasn't a requirement. And so this would be essentially my first full-time job when I moved here. It took me a couple years of traveling and trying to figure out what I wanted to do before I ended up here. And not having any corporate experience, a lot of it I feel like I've been learning on the fly. For instance, I called Stephanie before this interview and asked, okay, how do I talk about my client? What's the proper way and what's acceptable? So I feel like I've been learning corporate behavior little by little as we go.
All right. Well, I appreciate your candor and your transparency. And I think that our younger listeners, actually, I was just at the University of Houston. I think that this is something they would love to hear.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What about you, Nia?
Yeah, so I would say something that was a huge stumbling block for me was learning more about the culture of different companies. So beforehand, when I said I worked for a fast food chain, it was great. Everyone was friendly and bubbly, and everyone that we connected with was awesome. And then when I graduated and got a real job, quote unquote, the culture was the complete opposite of everything that I had experienced, which the values and everything were things that aligned with what I believed, which were great, and they always went by those. But the different personality types, the stern, just professionalism, the manner, and everything, they were so serious all the time. So it was completely different from what I was used to.
Right.
That was something that I really had to adjust to in that atmosphere.
Okay, that's fair. I think that that's really fair. And, actually, that is something I tend to ask a question on is, what kind of reality checks did you have coming out of college and into the corporate world? And I think that you both actually explained that really, really well. So thank you for that. Yeah, we don't even have to go there unless you have another share thing that you'd like to. You're like, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So I'm a big fan of the leadership at your company. I think that they get a lot of things right as far as the culture is concerned. Both the women that I know from there are rock stars. I mean, Stephanie is just as sweet and kind and just like, hey, let's just do this and this and this as she can be. And Shawnee is just a mile a minute, but at the same time, just incredibly centered, which is just fascinating to me. And her story is just fantastic. So is there anything specific that they do at Communiqué besides the crazy things that I just talked about, as far as the culture there, or maybe are there specific perks there that they have or offer that really make you guys continue to say, hey, this is the place I want to be every single day?
Right. Do you want to start?
Yeah, we have free parking. Free parking and free food and the flexibility to be mobile with our computers. One of the things that's really big for me was I love being active in my community. I love pouring into women, pouring into youth in my community. But I also love my job. So being able to have the flexibility to be all in at my job and then all in when I leave to go do whatever kind of service activity I'd like. And to be supported in that was really amazing for me.
That is that. I love that. That's great. Yeah. Being all in.
Yeah. And building on that, Communiqué has been so intentional with practical boundaries. Like we have an email curfew where clients know they should not expect to hear back from us company-wide after a certain hour because We want to be fully engaged at work and then fully engaged at home and not trying to be in two places at once. And Communiqué has been really good about expressing that expectation to our clients so that it's not incumbent necessarily upon us to say, actually, I'm not going to be replying to you on weekends and things like that. So I have felt supported in that way that they're for us.
You know what? And I in our culture today, that is so not the way it is. So I love that. And actually, Shawnee and I have had a conversation about that in the past, but I'm glad to hear that you say that. But, I think it's even more important now that you have a little one at home, because it's, you do find yourself, especially at that age, that you're up with them at all hours, unusual hours. And sometimes you can't go back to sleep. So it's easy to go and just check your email. And I'm glad that rule's in place. So it just takes it out of the equation.
Yes.
Good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your direct manager and Tanya, and what is it that Tanya does that keeps you guys engaged, or is there any way that she kind of helps you work through problems, or tell us how great she is.
Oh, I'll start. Hang on. I was gonna say.
Oh, hang on. Okay.
Tanya, you should know, is the best encourager I've met. She is so good about not just, woohoo, you're doing a great job, but Tanya gets to know you and she encourages you on specific things in a timely manner. When we were doing strengths finders a couple years ago, one of her top strengths is woo. That's right, WOO, woo. And it talks about her being able to just bring people in and to know them individually, and she's so good at it. So I feel encouraged often, as well as empowered. I've been working on particular projects with Tanya and trying to take some stuff off of her plate as well and just learn from her. And she's given me a lot of freedom to be able to work through things and even make a couple mistakes sometimes, and then we can learn through that as well. And she's great at empowering us to make us feel like we're able to do these things and learn. Yeah.
And she woos you.
And she woos us, yes.
I love it. Okay. What about you, Nia?
I have to completely agree 100% there. Tanya is extremely supportive. I will say that oftentimes you will have those moments where you're struggling with the amount of work that you have to do. And to have someone like Tanya come in and check on you and say, like, so how are you doing? Not from a watching over your shoulder type view, but a really genuinely caring, like, how are you? How's life? How's work? How can I help? How can I make things lighter for you? If there's a need, how can I fill that need or have someone fill that need so that you don't feel this way? So just extremely supportive. And not only just say it, she actually gets things done. So it's one thing for people to be like, oh yeah, I'll help you. But then another thing for them to actually take that action and you can see the change and feel the change. So it's really great. I love Tanya. We could rave on her all day.
That's so good to hear. I mean, it's funny because a lot of times I do work with executive leadership teams and I'm like, look, the direct leaders are so crucial. And people are like, oh, but we're going to promote them because of seniority. I'm like, no, you need people that can actually, talk to people and deal with people and treat the people that they're leading like human beings. And I feel like in her wooed status that she does that.
I love it.
in her woo-ness. So, that's awesome. That's really, really, really cool. All right. So you guys are both still pretty young in your careers, as we have discussed. Is there anything that you guys feel that made you stand out to the hiring manager at Communiqué? What was it about your resume? What was it?
Okay. Yeah. For me, I'd say it is my personality. I'm very friendly and bubbly and just awesome, I think.
She is.
So outside of those factors, my confidence is key for me, at least. Mm-hmm. Just knowing what it is that you're going in there to do, the job that you're going in there to apply for, etc. So my confidence, and then also my skills and experience, of course. Mm-hmm. So having certain skills that are needed for the position that I was originally applying for. And then also having that experience, whether it's even if you're still in school and you're interning, everyone doesn't get to intern. My internship had nothing to do with marketing. So it was like, having some kind of experience working with within that field is a hand up. So I did have a little bit after before starting at Communiqué, I worked for another job, but so that was my initial way in, I guess.
Okay.
But,
very cool. What about you, Katy Rose?
One of the things that I think helped was I was interviewing with Communiqué and with the potential client on the same day, and which was not stressful at all. And when I was interviewing with the client, they were telling me about some of the editing work that was involved in a project that was supposed to take about half my time. And I am very detail oriented. And not having a corporate background, I'm not sure now if this was appropriate, but they were talking through some of the edits and some of the visual things and creatively what they'd be looking for. And I said, can you just bring me a piece right now and I'll walk through it aloud with you and we can work on this. I'm not sure if that was inappropriate, but they said, okay. And they brought over a piece and I talked through, okay, I would change this tone over here, this visual, and just worked through it top to bottom with them. And what was supposed to take half of my time on my project turned into my full-time job. So I think it worked, but being detail-oriented and perhaps without a filter to know that might not have been appropriate, I think helps me stand out in some way to be able to get on that project.
Absolutely. I think I wouldn't say that you don't have a filter. I would just say that you were eager to take on the opportunity.
I was very eager.
There you go. That's how I would put it.
I didn't know that, which is so cool.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
No.
That's hysterical. That is hysterical. Now, is there anything that you wish that companies and did that made it easier for millennials as they're being brought into the corporate fold?
I would talk about timelines and communication
okay.
in the hiring process. And I know that some of that, it has to be vague, but to give at least an outline of you can expect this process to take X amount of weeks or X amount of months, and this is the person who will contact you by this date with a yes or a no. It's good to know either way.
Absolutely. Any other suggestions, Nia?
No. Yeah. Following up.
Sorry.
Following up, making sure that they know, because you said with just a hiring process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just making sure that people know if they didn't get the position. That was a huge one for me because you're out there just like wondering, did I get it? Did I not get it? I don't know. I think what would be valuable though is if you are turned down from a position, that companies would tell you somewhat of a why so that you can learn and grow so that you're not repeating the same cycle every time. So I think that would be really good.
Yeah, I understand that. I totally hear that. I on that the timeline issue, early in my career, I applied for a job and I interviewed for it, and then crickets. I heard nothing for months. And so I had completely moved on. I was like, all right, well, I didn't get the job. And then they called me and offered it to me later after I had been at a new job for 2 months. And I was like, is this a joke?
A little late.
I was like, that was 6 months ago.
Wow.
And they're like, well, we had a temporary hiring freeze. And I was like, well, you could have communicated that.
Yes.
So anyway, I did not take the job. It just didn't work out. Timing was bad. But anyway, well, you guys, I mean, this has just been really fantastic. I have really enjoyed the dynamic between the two of you. I think I mentioned this to you before, but the audience did not hear this portion of the conversation before we started recording. But as soon as I was talking to Shawnee and Stephanie at Communiqué and I said, hey, I want to have somebody on, they were like, these two, and we want them together. So even though Nia is in Atlanta and Katy Rose is in Texas, they wanted the two of them together, so they made it happen so that they could be together when we did this interview. So I am super grateful to Shawnee and Stephanie for you guys for making that happen. But you guys are pretty spectacular, I must admit. I mean, you guys both have some great personalities, and I look forward to seeing some big things out of both of you. So thank you for being on the Millennial Rockstar podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, Amanda. It's been an honor.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Millennial Rockstar Podcast. If you are looking for even more information on millennials and some free resources, visit my website at amandahammett.com. The link is below. It's amandahammett.com. There you can download a free millennial employee engagement guide that will give you all kinds of tips and tricks on how to keep those millennials engaged on a day-to-day basis. Because we all know that millennials who are happy at work are more productive at work.